When you try sampling, does your beat come out sounding like this? Well, today I'm going to help you solve your sampling problems by breaking down 3 beats that were made by 3 legendary producers at 3 different difficulty levels. And along the way, I'll show you what skills you need to practice to master each level yourself. My name is Navie. I've been making sampled beats for over 15 plus years. My beats have been used by artists and gotten millions of streams. So I'm going to show you what frameworks I use when sampling. And best of all, what I'm about to show you works no matter what beat making program or sampling tool you use. So let's start with the very first beat, an all-time classic that might seem like a simple beat at first, but actually has a key sampling lesson within it. The song I'm talking about is Mass Appeal. Produced by DJ Premier, this beat, as iconic as it is years later, ironically was made as a goof.
We made that record as a goof, and which became one of our bigger hits after Dwick, you know what I'm saying? So Mass Appeal, I just say, yo, we need to make a record that sounds like elevator music. So I was going, da, 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 you know, something like that. So when I heard the sample kind of have that melody, I was like, yo, that's it right there.
So let's take a look at the sample that DJ Premier uses and analyze what makes it work. So here I got this sample loaded up and you can see that it is nearly 7 minutes long, but it's this short little section here that DJ Premier decides to sample. But as you probably noticed, this sample is playing too fast to be used as a hip hop beat. So DJ Premier chops this little piece out from the sample and isolates it like so. Then he sets the BPM to something more suited for a hip-hop beat, and from here I will stretch this sample out so it fits perfectly in a 2-bar loop. After this, DJ Premier adds his own drum pattern, doing some EQing to the sample as well, and then we have the beat for Mass Appeal. Now this is the most basic beginner version of sampling, which is looping. And while it might seem like an easy to do technique, there is an important lesson in what I just showed you. Again, take a look at this entire sample and listen to the different parts as I skip around. There aren't many parts to this song that feel sampleable. Much of what you just heard is too over the top. The part that DJ Premier ends up using only lasts a few seconds, but it's perfect to make a beat out of. And so for most producers who are starting with looping, this is the key skill you need to learn. How to listen and understand what makes one sample good and another not so good. A mistake that I used to use was hearing a cool sound within the sample that was tucked away a bunch of other sounds and instruments, and then trying to force that idea out into a beat. It rarely ever went well. If this is something that you're struggling doing, I would recommend searching for a better part of the sample that doesn't have as much going around that cool idea that you like, which can be made easier with modern day stem splitting technology. Now on to the next level of sampling. A great example of this is a beat made by The Alchemist, Key to the City.
In the streets we heavy, on the block we ready. New York, got the keys to the city.
And there's actually a video of The Alchemist putting this beat together, and I remember watching this all the time when I first started making beats because it was just so amazing to me.
Or you could be like...
Now, when we analyze how this beat was made, we start seeing what the next level of sampling is. Let me show you what I mean. First of all, here is a sample that was used. And as we saw Al do in the video, he selects different pieces from the sample and then puts them together to build his own idea. As you can see, this beat only uses 4 main chops, and he uses these chops to create this great sounding loop. So let's talk about how to chop. This is something that a lot of producers struggle with, and I think it's partly because they haven't been shown what actually matters. For example, when we look at how The Alchemist chops the sample up, you can see he basically chooses to sample on the drums. And this might be an approach that you take where you look for these big spikes in your sample and then you chop them up and try to put a beat together using them. But there is a problem that you might run into if you only use this approach, which is that your chops might not make sense musically when you try putting them together. Your idea that you build must work musically and rhythmically. Failing to think about both of these is how you make a sampled beat that sounds awful. And so if you only ever chop on the drums, yes, your idea might make sense rhythmically, but it might end up being a musical mess. So let's look at what The Alchemist does with this beat to solve this problem. Yes, he does chop based on rhythm, but take a look at what he decides to do for the fourth bar of his loop. He adds 2 more chops that bring that musicality to the beat. And this prevents the beat from sounding repetitive or like nothing is ever happening. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Here I will use my plugin Note Grabber, which is a sample mapper that lets you see every note in your sample and even lets you grab notes. And as you can see, the notes don't really change much in the sample here. We have the same notes constantly being played up top here, plus we have the same bass notes being played over and over down here. And again, if these were the only chops that got used, I would go as far as saying this beat would probably sound too repetitive over time. So if your sample beats never feel like they go anywhere, this might be why. Now, once we bring in those additional chops that The Alchemist does use in the fourth bar, take a look at what happens. We have a change happening in the music. All of these new notes get introduced and the beat now sounds like it has some musical variation. So this is something that you can think about when you're making your chops. Don't just look at your sample and then place chops on these big huge spikes and that's it. Also pay attention to where the changes in the music are happening and piece together something that actually makes sense. And if you need help doing this, that's exactly why I built Note Grabber. It shows you every note in your sample, letting you see where those musical changes are happening. To try this plugin, you can start your free trial. A link is in the description box below. Or you can also do this by yourself with your samples if you want. Whatever. So thinking about these sampling skills, for most producers to do this intermediate level, the skills that they need is both listening and chopping. You will still need to learn how to listen and understand what makes a sample good. Plus, you must learn how to chop and piece together ideas that make sense both rhythmically and musically. And now finally, let's take a look at the next level up from this, and a perfect example of a beat at this level is Devil in a New Dress, a beat produced by Bink for Kanye West.
May the Lord forgive us, may the gods be with us. In that magic hour, I've seen good Christians.
And as legendary as this beat is, what I find amazing is that Bink actually entered this beat into a beat battle in 2009. And what's even more wild is this beat actually lost. So even if a room full of people don't like your beat, doesn't mean it's bad. It just might not be right for that audience. Anyways, here is a sample that was used for this beat.
But will you love me tomorrow?
And again, similar to the last couple beats that we looked at, we see the same skills of listening and chopping being used. For this beat, you can see the chops right here. But from here, there is more to this beat than just a sample and added drums. Bink does a great job of really building on this idea and adding more of his own instrumentation into the beat. And again, this might be something that you struggle with as well, so here are some tips to help you do this better. Number 1, build on what's already happening in your sample. Here I will use Note Grabber, but again, you can do this by yourself. I just want to show you this visually. But you can see the root note of bar 1 is an E, and in bar 3, it's a D sharp. And these are the exact notes that Bink uses to begin adding his own instrumentation into the beat. So here I will export these notes from the sample into a pattern and then use this information to build chords. And that's exactly how we get our first layer of amazing strings within this beat. So So use what already exists in the sample and build off of that. Same thing is true for building melodic ideas as well. By just knowing which notes exist in your sample and keeping that in mind, it becomes much easier to build a melodic pattern without worrying whether you're using the wrong note. And this is the next level of sampling, where the skills needed are listening and chopping, but also composing. Understanding what notes are in your sample and using that to build your own patterns around your ideas is the key skill to making expert level sampled beats. And like I mentioned, I have built a plugin designed to help you do this, and you can download it and start your trial for free, but if you're not interested, no worries at all. I hope this video has helped you either way. If it has, like and subscribe. If you want more help with sampling, check out the video next to me. It might save your life. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Bye for now.